Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're very excited to talk to you all about the Bay Area High Road Training Partnership managed by Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. We could move to the next slide. I am a policy associate at Rising Sun, and I work as a co-facilitator of the partnership. And to start, I'll just give a brief background on Rising Sun in the next slide. So we have operated as a direct service organization supporting people and communities of the Bay Area and San Joaquin County for over 30 years and are deeply rooted at the intersection of equity, climate, and good sustainable careers. Our mission has always been to build career pathways for economic equity and climate resilience, and our overarching vision is a just and sustainable future for all. Next slide, please. We offer a wide variety of programs and services at Rising Sun, but fortunately, my coworker Glendy Domingo will be talking about some of these in the next panel, so stay tuned. But our presentation today is centered around our policy and advocacy work. And since 2021, we've been designing and advocating for state and local policies and programs to equitably improve job quality and climate resilience. And I will pass the mic to my associate, Emily Courtney, as we move on to the next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Courtney. I support Rising Sun in the facilitation of the High Road Training Partnership. And I've been working in community with Rising Sun since the Obama era when I was managing the Oakland Green Jobs Corps at Laney College. And we were both facing the disappointing reality that residential energy efficiency and renewable energy jobs that we were training our hardworking, skillful, and dedicated community members for were not, in fact, the pathways out of poverty that we had hoped. And interestingly, in 2020, 2021, I was at SEI working with MCE to launch the Green Workforce Pathways program that Javier just shared with us. And when we approached Rising Sun to discuss a partnership to place the pre-apprenticeship OB opportunity build graduates into residential decarbonization jobs, Rising Sun had to decline participation because at that time, job quality still wasn't high enough, more than a decade after facing this challenge initially during the ARA era. So together, as a High Road Training Partnership, we're seeking to address this job quality challenge. Our High Road Training Partnership was founded in 2021, and it seeks to increase job quality and equitable access for all workers in the residential decarbonization market, starting in the 9-county Bay Area. And we envision a residential building decarbonization industry that supports quality jobs, engages a qualified workforce, and provides stable career pathways for disadvantaged workers, while simultaneously helping to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and build more resilient communities. Next slide. Our High Road Training Partnership was founded in recognition of the imminent increase in public funding designed to accelerate the investment in building decarb retrofit projects. In the Bay Area alone, we expect these investments to grow from $61 million in 2021 when we started to $234 million in 2025. And this work will necessitate a robust and growing workforce. We expect that the labor market in 2025 will add 200 to 1,000 local full-time equivalent jobs to the local current workforce of 3,000 to 5,000. Just to note, this number is significantly less than the 11,000 to 18,000 full-time equivalent workers needed each year to decarbonize all of the Bay Area's buildings, based on a 2020 inclusive economics study. But currently, the residential construction industry often includes low road labor practices, including unpermitted work, low wages, lack of worker benefits, and low rates of worker organizing. So without intentional policy intervention, growth of the building decarbonization market could entrench an industry that exacerbates poverty and economic inequity in our region, unless we really take coordinated action to elevate the industry's standards. So this is the challenge and opportunity that brings our partners together. We're working in close collaboration with many official and listening partners, some of whom are represented here. These include organized labor, union and non-union contractors, residential program administrators, which include local governments, CCAs, and RENs. And we also work with equity and building decarbonization experts in our partnership. The partnership is co-led by the Construction Trades Workforce Initiative, which is the nonprofit wing of the East Bay Building Trades Council. Our partnership is focused on the most challenging building decarb sector for workers, single-family and small multifamily building retrofits. As Nate mentioned, there is a disparity between job quality in commercial and residential tends to have lower job quality and be harder to recruit and retain workers. Our initial geographic area is the 9-county Bay Area, and we focus on electrification and energy efficiency occupations. Next slide, thanks. So as a collective, we represent really diverse points of view in our partnership, and there are a lot of potential perils that folks in our partnership saw to policy intervention and designed to improve job quality in this market. So as a collective, we first designed and voted upon these principles that guide every decision that we make as a partnership. We believe that dialogue with union and non-union residential contractors is critical to understanding the market. We're committed to building capacity and access for small BIPOC and women-owned residential contractors. We're committed to increasing equitable access to quality training and employment for BIPOC women and other disadvantaged workers and job seekers. Sorry, can we move to the next slide? We aim to raise the job quality floor of the industry by advocating for high road labor standards in publicly funded residential decarb programs, and we aim to increase the participation of high road contractors in residential decarbonization. And I'll pass it back to Abby on the next slide.
Thank you, Emily. So when we say high road, what do we mean by this? So the high road is a set of economic and workforce development strategies to achieve economic growth and equity, shared prosperity in a clean environment. And these strategies include, but are not limited to, interventions that improve job quality and access, meet the skill and profitability needs of employers, and meeting the economic, social, and environmental needs of the community. Next slide, please. So high road strategies operate at the intersection of climate, equity, and jobs, and it's truly a win-win-win approach to equitable building decarbonization. And the reality is simple. Without high-quality jobs, workers won't stay in this field, and contractors will continue to face hiring challenges, often resorting to a race to the bottom strategy to fill the gaps. And we cannot address the climate crisis on the backs of our workers. So high-quality jobs are not just a moral imperative. They are essential to solving the climate crisis. High-quality jobs will attract and retain the skilled workforce we need to achieve our decarbonization goals. Next slide, please. Taking into account this holistic strategy, our partnership has come up with partnership recommended definitions for a high road decarb job, as well as a high road decarb contractor. So a high road residential decarb job should provide residential prevailing wages with overtime, provide healthcare coverage that includes dependents, vision, and dental, offer a pension or retirement savings plan for full-time workers with an employer match, provide paid time off, offer opportunities for career advancement and skill development, and a worker in a high road residential decarb job should feel welcome, safe, heard, included, and empowered with the assurance of support from supervisors and the organization. Moving on to the next slide, we will have our definition of a high road residential decarb contractor. So they should be providing the benefits described in the last slide, but should also be in compliance with all labor codes and laws, possess all necessary licenses and certifications, and be bonded and insured to do their job within residential construction in California. They should uplift and employ workers from disadvantaged communities and maintain a workforce that represents and serves the community in which they work. And they should provide work hours for both experienced and entry-level workers. Next slide, please. So how do we achieve our goal of quality jobs and equitable access to residential decarb jobs? So we utilize labor standards as a strategy to set a baseline for job quality. Our partnership's approach to equitable labor standard intervention is to require minimum labor standards to subvert the race to the bottom on publicly funded projects, to utilize a phased-in approach to allow disadvantaged contractors to join based on a commitment to meet the labor standards by the start of construction, to support contractors to meet these standards, and by offering incentives to support greater job quality. Next slide, please. Our Bay Area HRTP's industry-specific labor standards include 5 categories consisting of recommended and required standards for wage and benefits, training and certification, targeted and regional hire, uplifting disadvantaged contractors, and compliance and accountability. And more specific information on each category will be published by our partnership in the first week of December, and those consist of our industry-specific labor standards and how to integrate them into program design. So stay tuned. Hopefully we can share those with the group in the coming date. Next slide, please.
Great. So our partnership, as I mentioned earlier, was concerned about tragic trade-offs when recommending labor standards for publicly funded programs. So we undertook an economic impact analysis study to inform the partnership when designing these recommended labor standards. The professional researchers who conducted this research are Movement Economics and Ponder Analytics. And we'll put in the chat the research papers if you're interested in reviewing them. I'm going to highlight in particular today the economic impact analysis. Go to the next slide. One of the key findings at a high level is that good wages and benefits in the residential decarbonization sector are a win-win-win-win-win. Good for workers, employers, taxpayers, the economy, and the climate. Prevailing wages and benefits lead to significant wage gain for impacted workers, while only increasing project costs by 3 to 9%, which is a cost we recommend be paid for through increased public funding for residential decarb programs. This investment also brings contractors, consumers, and the climate the benefits of better employee recruitment, retention, and work quality. One of the key benefits of a wage and benefit minimum standard is closing the racial wage gap. Latin A workers currently earn 65 cents for every dollar that white, non-Hispanic workers earn in the residential decarb sector. A prevailing wage standard would all but eliminate this gap for the bottom half of the wage distribution. Employers also benefit from higher wages and benefits. In our research, and this aligns with Nate's findings as well, contractors repeatedly shared that worker recruitment and retention is one of their most pressing challenges due to the race to the bottom in an industry with no required wage and benefit floor. Contractors also suffer from this structure, as well as workers. Prevailing wages and benefits reduce worker turnover, offsetting at least 20% of the increased labor costs. Workers earning prevailing wages and benefits stay in the industry longer, increasing productivity and technical proficiency, and therefore improving their climate outcomes. Taxpayers also benefit from requiring prevailing wages and benefits. Almost half of families of construction workers rely on a social safety net program, costing California taxpayers $3 billion annually. Higher wages and benefits would significantly reduce this burden on the taxpayer while generating 21 to 49 million in additional tax revenue in the Bay Area. In addition, with higher wages, workers would spend more on goods and services in the economy, increasing local GDP by $115 to $189 million annually. And these combined savings and additional revenues would lead to a net public benefit of $44 to $70 million annually if the Bay Area residential decarbonization projects paid prevailing wages and benefits.
So early on in the partnership's work in 2022, we identified 38 programs that served the Bay Area, and none of them at the time had measurable labor standards. Now, a couple years later, we can see that change is already underway. So we now have programs that do contain labor standards, impacting over $1 billion in residential decarbonization subsidies. And some of those organizations and programs are listed right here, but we can move on to the next slide. And through partnership collaboration, the Bay Area High Road Training Partnership has released and is soon to be releasing a wide variety of work products. So our 2 industry analysis papers that Emily touched on before can be found in their entirety on Rising Sun's website under the Policy and Advocacy tab. If you'd like to read more about those topics in depth, the Job Quality Labor Standards Toolkit that I mentioned before will be releasing in the first week of December and should also be found under the Policy and Advocacy tab on our website when it's released. Our Public Programs Guide and the complementary resource to the toolkit that will support public administrators, policymakers, and others will be released at the end of the year. And lastly, our Workforce Training and Access Guide, which will also be available at the end of the year. And you can move on to the next slide. Thank you all so much. Our contact info is here, and I think we'll be moving into our question and answer portion for all of the panelists next. But thank you so much.